All right, we are live and really very crunchy nation. Thank you for listening.
You just love to jump in and steal the spotlight, don't you?
Should we start really very crunchy nation? Like the podcast network. You can only be on the network if you're crunchy.
I kind of like this idea, Jason.
Let's do it. The really very crunchy podcast network. Crunchy Nation.
Huh. Maybe.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Emily?
Write that down.
Not okay. Crunchy Nation. All right. I'm going to see that later and think, what's Crunchy that? Is that a country? That's cool. Emily would love to live there. Emily, not all heroes wear capes. Some of them wear linen. And maybe linen capes. And
silk. I mean, I would say most heroes' capes are silk, probably. They should be.
They're polyester.
The flow. No, for like a really good ripple in the wind, silk is excellent. I mean, our children wear silk.
Don't they all just wear spandex?
Maybe on their body, but the cape, surely it's silk.
Superheroes' outfits really awful. Like, nobody can actually move in those.
No, I mean, that's what dancers wear. You would think that you've
no,
never
but they're actually wearing armored.
You've never worn a unitard.
The only people who's wearing a unitard are like the superheroes from the 50s shows. Nobody's doing that now. It's like metal and hardcore plastic. And Batman's famous for not being able to actually turn his head.
Oh, really?
At all. Yeah, watch the 1990 Batman, and it's like he can't even. He's like so stiff. I'm like, you would not move like that. Anyway, you're a hero to some people. If you're looking through the comments on one of our latest reels about, we talked about it in the last podcast, scented soaps in particular, dish soap in baked goods. The reason I think you're a hero is because something we discovered this week. It's that you become the bad guy for people who don't want to be the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
You exposed through a funny reel that a lot of y'all's baked goods taste like Dawn, and you don't know it. And so they can share this funny reel, maybe even a little bit passive aggressively. Isn't this funny? These were your cookies.
I never really thought of it that way. I always feel so bad being a jerk.
Yeah, but now you feel good about it.
But I can always be like, it's comedy. It's comedy. I can tell myself that. And it's a character.
Yeah.
However, I do taste sentence.
Well, I mean, it is a real thing. Like, some of you people really have no idea that your cookies taste terrible.
Seriously, so many comments like...
Not to be rude.
What would it be like to live like this?
And somebody's going to go over to their mother-in-law's house. Hey, I heard this fun podcast episode. You want to listen to the intro for me or with me? I think you would love it. They're so funny. They're so funny. They're so funny.
If I get to be...
You want to bake a cake?
If I get to be the bad guy so that other people don't have to be, I guess I can live with that.
And that is the definition of a hero. That's Batman. He became the bad guy.
He's not bad, though.
Yeah, but he's like, he's a vigilante. The police are after him. They want to take him down because they think he's a bad guy.
Wait, the police are after him?
You have no idea. Yeah.
I've watched Batman Begins, Batman Returns, Batman Forever.
Okay, those are different franchises, different eras of Batman. Do not put Batman Begins in the same sentence as Batman Forever, please. Please.
Batman Forever is a thing?
Yeah, as Val Kilmer is not very good.
Oh, I think I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, well, those aren't even the same. No.
Okay.
That was the movie just before they started putting nipples on Batman, his costume, and it just went downhill until 2005. Anyway, it seems like with this reel, we just discovered that you are the vigilante of the crunchy world, and people get to share your reels and show others what they're doing horribly wrong.
It's not who I am underneath what I do that defines me.
There you go. You are the Dark Knight of the crunchy realm. Today we're talking about interestingly enough, what people get wrong about crunchy.
Misconceptions, common misconceptions of the crunchy mom.
And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
And you were like, what are some common misconceptions? And I just like immediately wrote them out without any thought.
Tick, 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 tick.
Just so many things.
Everybody gets this wrong about me. So, but again, that's your place in this world, is to take the brunt of that.
I would say that the biggest one definitely is that people think we are constantly judging.
Okay.
That is like the top number one. And as I'm saying that I'm the vigilante.
Yeah.
It's not that people are judging. It's not that crunchy people are judging. We are making a judgment
They're just
call.
doing everything better than you are.
No.
We're just so much better than any of you people.
I think that crunchy people live with a great deal of intentionality.
Yeah.
And so everything that
everybody
they do,
else is a pea zombie.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you have chosen a path of intentionality, that means you put thought towards your decisions, even your micro decisions. And so
you micromanage your life, your own life, and it comes
Why
across
not?
as
You only live
managing
once.
other people's life.
So when you are making decisions, that is making a judgment call. So you do believe that one way is better than another. And therefore, it comes across as judging someone else's decision.
Which is true in
You're
all
not judging
parenting.
them as a person.
You just judge everything they do.
No, you're just like, well, I think this is better for my family. You can do what you want to do. That's not my family. I do care about you, and I wish that you would make wiser choices. No, I do care about people.
You think in general you wish people had better options and were more informed about those options, but that's not necessarily something that you're saying on each person individually.
And I'm not sitting here thinking about my neighbor using Swiffer on their floor or whatever.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
But I would think about me using Swiffer on my floor.
Right.
So, but isn't that's anything?
That's what I was going to say.
Every family has
especially
a family
in
culture.
parenting.
Every family has family rules. And like whatever's best for you isn't necessarily best for our family.
Well, like, yeah.
I
So if
can't
the
know what's best
Johnsons
for you.
don't let their kids wear helmets on their bikes, but we have to wear helmets on our bikes, we're not judging you if our kids are wearing helmets and you go bike riding together.
Usually our kids are the ones without the helmets.
Don't say that.
On a road, here's my rule on helmets. If we're on a road, you're wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
If we're like, you know,
Well, you're
in the
going at such a
driveway,
low speed and stuff.
you know.
It can happen.
Yeah.
Things can happen.
I
But
know. And I should
My
be more
point-
stickler on the helmets.
My point was that you'll make those judgment calls as parents all the time in
Right.
various aspects. However, it always comes up. It's so prominent in like parties and stuff. Food is a very
Food
prominent
is a
part
big
of
part.
everybody's culture.
Yes.
Everybody's culture. So it just so happens in our American culture, a lot of food is absolute garbage.
Unfortunately.
Judgment. Sorry.
But here's the thing. I think most crunchy people are willing to be flexible on things like sugar.
And that's a misconception by people who aren't crunchy thinking about crunchy people, is that they aren't
completely
flexible
rigid.
at all, which there are those out there. There
Yeah.
are those out there.
Oh, yeah.
And they exist, and they,
For sure. I have leaned that way because I'm sort of an all or nothing type of person.
yeah,
So then I start to get like, well, are we doing it or are we not?
right.
But no, I've like become more flexible because I do believe that it's important to prioritize community and friendship and togetherness. And,
Unless it's full of red dye.
yeah, like the dye thing. But that
Ah!
just accept it.
Yeah.
Like, but then I feel bad for my kids. Like, I mean, we just went caroling with our Forest Friends group, and so many places we went, they're like, grab a candy cane. And my kids are just looking at me, and they're like, why do all our friends eat dyes? I think you should make it where if you want to be in Forest Friends, you're not allowed to eat dyes. And I'm like, well, I can't do that.
We
you know?
should have brought our, well, I wasn't there, but we should have brought our Yum Earth
Alternative.
alternative.
I know.
But
they
you
also
just
don't
didn't.
need all that candy.
That's
like,
true. It's just constant sugar.
just
People want to
constant.
throw sugar at your kids. It's like, oh, they're children. Give them buckets of sugar.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. Why not give them buckets of, broccoli?
Buckets of gold.
Gold? Yes, please. Okay. So on top of that, there's that misconception that crunchy people are in a constant state of anxiety. And so that those judgment calls that are made, that those are constantly being made, is born from they're just a completely anxious person.
Okay,
and again,
so
let me just say that a lot of these are true, but not necessarily the rule.
Right.
They're not the norm for crunchy people. There are always outliers.
Again, I can say that, yes, I have struggled with anxiety. And I haven't struggled much with anxiety over crunchy.
A lot
choices.
of your anxiety is not
It wasn't
crunchy related at all. It's more about death.
Yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Just like dying spontaneously.
People dying young.
Yeah.
My children dying,
choking.
Choking is a major anxiety that has nothing to do with being crunchy, except for baby-led weaning, which is a crunchy thing for palate development.
Information overload. Too much.
I know.
So much reading.
But I do think, I can see why people get anxious because you are trying to avoid something and then you're affronted with it at every turn.
Well, would you say that most people's crunchy journey, if you will, starts with anxiety?
I'd say there's like you're blissfully unaware.
Mm-hmm.
As your awareness rises.
Less of a pea zombie. I'm kidding. I'm not.
As your awareness rises, your anxiety may tend to spike, but then you just learn to manage it. Like you just say, okay, well, this is the best I can do with the resources I have available to me, and that is enough.
Yeah.
And you just go forward from there.
And not to, just try to sit here and promote your book, but that's kind of what your whole book is about, is taking small steps in any way you can. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. There's simple steps in each, which I'll link to the book in the description. There are simple steps in every aspect of your life, whether it's air quality or food or whatever.
Sure.
You can
and
go
many
to
of them are free and easy.
You can go to the extreme, or you could take that first small step into just making things a little bit better, like opening windows.
Better, Jason? Better?
Yeah,
Can
opening
you say
your window.
better?
Yes, I can say better. I mean, when it comes to air quality, you can open your windows unless you live in New York City under the subway or something, or over the subway. Whatever. I'm just saying, like, yes, there are small things you can do. And so that's just kind of what you were talking about in your whole book is what I was getting at. And it's a great resource. I recommend it. I've read it 6 times.
And
I
you
helped
still
edit.
don't remember things.
I don't. I know.
What did I say the other day? I was like, yeah, I wrote about that in my book.
Too much information. Information overload.
But I do think that you can...
Yeah, if you took all of the things to the extreme all the time...
You would probably be anxious.
It's probably because of anxiety. But but most people don't actually go to the extreme on everything all the time. It's kind of an impossibility.
Sure.
I mean, didn't mean to kind of take over there, but I really wanted to promote your book. It's really good. Should read it. It's doing well. People are reading it. It has been chosen for the Hoopla Book Club next year.
That's pretty exciting.
I don't know what that means exactly.
But Kristen Hannah's on the list. So
you and Kristen Hannah.
I've got to be doing something right.
Like the book club, like, we're reading really very crunchy. This is a little bit too much for me. Go to the women.
That'll be too much for you. If you have anxiety, don't read it.
Oh, yeah. Anxiety. Just, go to Vietnam in the late 60s. That'll give you anxiety. Constantly living in guilt. Crunchy people are constantly living with guilt because they're not doing enough.
Okay, so...
You wrote this one down.
I wrote this list, and I guess it's because maybe there are like slight touches of this, slight touches, but I'm not constantly living in guilt. Okay, I'm going to
Well, that's the misconception, right?
Yeah.
You're not. That's what you're saying.
But I do sometimes feel guilt over things. So I don't know. Why did I make this list, Jason?
I don't know.
So I think that, if I see all the time, people are like, crunchy people just ruin everything.
Mm-hmm.
They just ruin it because they're so aware of everything. And then they come out and they just, and you've said that before.
Yeah.
You're like, you've ruined my life because now I'm aware of stuff.
Oh, in a joke.
In a joke.
Yeah, I mean, you ruined my life for other reasons.
But do you feel guilty when you wear a polyester coat?
Okay, so
Do you feel guilty, or are you just like, I don't really want to wear this?
No, it's not guilt at all. Guilt is not the right word. It's more so I'm like, wow, I'm wearing a plastic bag right now.
Okay, let me touch on the guilt thing. The other day,
Guilt would come towards like you're letting your kids wear a plastic bag or something, right? Like, oh man. Sorry, go ahead.
The other day, I wore heels to church. My friend gave me these heels that were too small for her, and
you were smoking hot.
They're like a square, thick, chunky, like a grandma heel kind of, except the toe is pointed. I don't know if grandmas wear pointed toes. Anyway,
not a wide toe box.
Terrible for your toe splay. And I do think about that. Like, I'm putting them on.
Are you feeling guilty for wearing?
Not really guilty, but
heels?
I do feel
That's weird.
sort of like, what if somebody recognizes me and then looks down and sees my lack of toe space?
That's just weird. And maybe a little self-absorbed. Not so much guilt.
Well, I've already talked about how whenever people recognize me out and about, it's sort of strange.
Yeah.
Like, my friend wanted to go get a pedicure because she said that her feet looked rough and whatever. And I was like, I'll go with you. And then somebody recognized me, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. They wanted to get a picture with me.
I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah, I said that. I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm like almost
as though there's a mandate that you
know.
can't be at one of these places.
I don't.
You
go
lose
to
your
those
street
places.
cred, though.
What, like, I go there once every year, maybe.
Yeah.
If even. I think I may have gone twice this year, but it's because I've been invited, and I feel like
you want to be with your, people, your friends who aren't necessarily crunchy. Because you're not a crazy person, and you can be friends with people who aren't crunchy. That's probably another.
And I can have them put blue goop on my feet and then look at it with a little bit of a cringe, but be like, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, that's probably another misconception, is that you can only be around your people. That's not written down, but like
if I was only around my people.
Well, you wouldn't be in Paducah, Kentucky. That's for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, guilt. What I was like, I can see how I notice things that don't align that I'm doing, but like life is nuanced and things happen, and
it's funny,
like that's just how it is. Life is nuanced, and you can make decisions in the moment. Scenario by scenario.
Right.
You don't have to be 100% perfect all the time.
Right. And it's funny to me that it definitely comes up a lot in the crunchy space, this conversation even, when it doesn't seem to be coming up in any other scenario, but like it's no different than anything else that you follow along with, whether it's...
Yeah, what if somebody loves riding their bike and then one day you see them rollerblading?
We have a lot of bike analogies today.
Are you rollerblading?
Yeah. That's gonna kill your ankles.
Can't I be multifaceted? I guess that goes
I'm more so thinking along the lines of like parenting or social groups or whatever.
Sure.
It's interesting because it just goes. The reason is because it goes against the norm. It's not the majority opinion. Most people don't care. It's not so much that they have a conviction in the opposite direction. They just don't care. Whenever you have a conviction or a way of life that you are trying to stick to in a very passionate and resolute way, there's going to be resistance. And most of the time, people are just kind of going along with their culture. And I'm not saying that that's wrong and necessarily, but it is a little bit counter I hate to use this term, counterculture
Mm-hmm.
in that sense, because in any time that happens, there's going to be friction.
So, but then
Whether it's guilt or
what comes
social.
with that is, so you're going against the flow, but sometimes you just go with the flow a little bit and then you turn around and go against the flow. Doesn't that seem hypocritical?
Not if you're a salmon. Salmon go both ways.
Do they?
Yeah, they gotta go lay
They
their
go
eggs
against the flow
upstream.
and then they come.
They gotta go back. I don't know why I said that. Microplastics are
The
in salmon. By the way. Mercury.
that T-shirt, get your pink back. We need to like do one that's be a salmon.
Be a salmon. Go both ways sometimes. Sometimes you're going upstream, sometimes you're going downstream. This is not a succinct message, but be a salmon.
I definitely also think about like the whole the visual of the toxic load. Say, those drink decanters, you have it turned on and the water's flowing out. And if you're doing all the things that are quote unquote toxic all the time, your body
You're
isn't
filling
able
up
to
with-
process.
It starts
all
at your
of it
toes and it goes up to your body.
It's not an actual. That's not how it actually works. But
Wouldn't it be kind of cool if it did? Like,
if it
man,
was
my
like-
feet are hurting. I need to reduce my toxic load.
it'll overflow. Like there's overflow resulting in symptoms, negative symptoms, and health issues. And then, but like obviously, we are going to be exposed to environmental toxins sometimes. And can you willingly allow that because you realize that your toxic load is low? I guess that's where the 80-20 rule comes in.
How are you actually measuring this? You can't actually measure this on a day-to-day basis. You can't actually measure 80-20. This is my 20. It's like, well, what is your 20? Smoking cigarettes? Smoking cigarettes every day. It's my 20. No, that's more like your 90.
I agree. I do agree with that sometimes. I think, like people will be like, well, I would never give up dyeing my hair. Never, ever. And to me, like, that's not something I could do to me, that seems more than 20 is dyeing your hair.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know.
It could be like 3 for all you know.
Could be.
That because it's like stuff on the outside, maybe not absorbing into your body that
it touches
much.
your scalp.
Yeah, but maybe not that bad. You
Maybe
don't really
not.
know.
But how frequently do you have to go?
But it's not really worth. Yeah, I mean, it's not really worth. You're breathing it in too. I'll eat organic, but I'm not giving up my cigarettes.
You're stuck on the cigarettes.
My Virginia Slims.
I doubt there's anybody out there like that, Jason.
It's an example. It's an example.
There's nobody like that.
I bet there's somebody out there who eats all organic, pasture-raised meats, the best eggs you can find, and they smoke Virginia Slims.
No, there's nobody. No.
Well,
No.
okay. Well, then your farmers who do that. There's regenerative farmers who's out there probably smoking a pipe.
Okay.
Well, okay.
Organic tobacco. They're getting their
it's
what
terrible.
is it?
Tar.
Spirited native spirit.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I'm not
My
going
brother used to smoke those.
Peyote.
What? No.
Oh.
It's a tobacco brand. It comes in a teal
American
pouch.
Spirit.
American Spirit.
Yeah, it's probably. What would be the tobacco version of like greenwashing? Would it just be greenwashing? You can't really greenwash cigarettes.
Yeah, you can. Oh, yeah, you can. They're selling unbleached papers to roll your own.
This only turns your lungs black over a 20-year period and not a 5-year period.
Well, it doesn't have the additives.
Oh,
so
good.
It's more natural.
So instead of all the other carcinogens, we're just going to coat your lungs in tar.
Is it tar?
Is it not?
I thought tar was added.
Is it? I don't know.
I don't know.
It just doesn't.
That's one of those things. It's like,
smoke is
I don't
kind
know.
of anti-lung. And just in general.
It is.
If
You're right.
Yeah. Whatever.
Talk about air quality there.
I'm just saying, I think there's somebody out there who, they like their little smoking habit.
Not Virginia Slims, though.
I don't know. I used to work at a place called Mel's Market, and part of my job was I sold cigarettes behind the counter. So Marlboro Soft Pack was the go-to for a lot of people.
Soft pack?
Soft pack. So, it's the type of box. You have your soft box and you have your hard box.
I'd
And
always
people
go
cared
for a
about,
hard box.
Well, I would think so because you wouldn't want your cigarettes to be smashed. But
Yeah.
these people must like their smashed
Soft
cigarettes.
pack.
I don't know.
Fits in their pocket better.
I think Marlboro Lights soft pack were the most
How much
sold.
were they?
At the time, like $2.45, I think $2.45. Now they're like $8, I think, something like that. Yeah, I don't know this from experience. I do not smoke cigarettes at all. Never have.
That is one thing that does kind of crack me up. People will be like, all that organic stuff's too expensive. Have you looked at a box of Mountain Dew lately?
And I'm a chain smoker. Like, cigarettes are so expensive.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense. Okay. Well, I mean, addiction to nicotine.
Are we judging?
Smokers? 100%.
My kids.
100%.
It's so funny.
I will judge smokers. That's fine.
So, yeah, my kids will see someone smoking and they're like, they're smoking.
Are they going to die? I mean, we're all going to die at some point.
I don't do that, though, because I was traumatized as a child.
Oh, they are aware that we're all going to die, but they think 100 is the age in which everyone dies.
No, they know that's old. They're hopeful that we'll all make it to 100.
Okay. Well, I often hear them say, well, they're not 100 yet, so they're not, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
And they keep saying they're going to live to 120, 130, which
they do?
very well may happen. I don't know. Depends on which way we go. Depends on some things. All right. There is this one thing. Starts with a P. It's called, we avoid it like the plague, but it's not the plague, but we do avoid the plague if we can. Politics.
If we can, unless we can get some natural immunity there. I'm just
kidding. I don't know. I think, well, we brought in some fleas. We're trying to get immunity to the plague. No,
I have a fear of the plague. That was one thing that I had anxiety over at one point in my life was the plague.
What happened?
Like, how can my anxieties get so out of whack sometimes? But it's because, listen, we got fleas in our pop-up, okay?
Yeah.
We got fleas in our
Not the most recent. This is like 10 years
a long time ago. Winnie brought in fleas.
But we were staying.
At the same time, children in the same state died of the plague.
It might have been like not even, we're talking counties away, not that far.
So, yeah, I was like,
the plague.
We're going to get the plague.
Yeah.
We're going to get the plague.
That kept us both up for nights. Not me because I was afraid of it, but because of you. Afraid of the plague. I'm like, I'm just tired of itching. Well, we avoid this. Politics. We don't put a lot of politics into our material.
Well, I mean, I didn't realize that raw milk was political.
Yeah.
So
apparently.
I guess sometimes our stuff is infused with political
whoopsie
underpinnings.
Yeah. Sorry.
Underpinnings of politics.
Didn't know. I mean, raw milk. You right winger. Anyway, to be crunchy, I mean, you're probably overly political, probably leaning towards the right. Apparently. You were this last week in a New York Times article. That sounds kind of bizarre, surreal in a way. I don't know if it's in a good way.
Especially if they met me in real life. I think, like, whenever I'm telling people, like, oh, yeah, I was interviewed by the New York Times.
But I think it's
as if I have some...
Sorry, guys, I can't make it. I have an interview with the New York Times today.
I have as if I'm qualified to even be talking on these things.
Well,
I'm totally aware of my status.
Except after the outcome of the article leaves me thinking that, why not anybody? It's not...
Sure.
It wasn't that great.
It's all opinion.
It's interesting because they interviewed you with the obvious, after seeing the article, with the obvious intent of writing something that they wanted to write instead of writing something that was objectively true.
Sure. That is so weird.
It's strange. Even when you're being interviewed, she's like, I'm trying to kind of go for this narrative.
Yes, she said to me, because I said, like, what is your aim?
Mm-hmm.
And she said...
Which should be to tell a story.
Okay. To discover the truth.
Sure.
Sure, but she already has an idea. She's already written the article in her head, and now she's just baiting you for quotes
Sure.
to fit her narrative.
To fit the narrative, the narrative that she already determined that the story she wants to tell. So what the premise of...
my aim, like I said, what is your aim? She said, I'd like to talk about how Crunchy has changed from when I was a kid or when I was a young mom to
Which
now.
we're talking maybe like 20, 30 years ago or so. Yeah, to now.
So when she first started talking, she's like, what are the 5 most important things to a crunchy mom? And I'm like, well, air, food, water.
I have a book about this.
Yeah, I said, your parental relationship. And something else.
That's called parenting.
Yeah.
That's weird. Parental relationship.
Well, it's not just like a parenting style. I think that it has to do with your relationship with your child. And I think a lot of crunchy people choose to do things like co-sleeping because they want to create the secure attachment. But then, like I said, my 5 things, and she's like, well, what about doctors and vaccines and stuff like that? I was like, I don't think that defines you as crunchy.
Mm-hmm.
I think crunchy people from all, like like I said in my book, it's a spectrum. So you can be crunchy and make a completely different choice than someone else who is also crunchy.
Yeah.
So I think the most important part of it is that you're informed, that you're actually making decisions.
Yeah. So
anyway, but she turned it. I wasn't given.
I'm not saying, like, I don't even think the article painted you in a bad light at all.
No,
at all. I think it painted Crunchy
in a bad light.
In a weird / bad light, or at least even just trying.
Yeah, not
even so bad, just trying to politicize it in a way that it felt forced. It felt forced. And I think most crunchy people don't really care about the I mean, I'm not saying none of them do.
I'm not saying that they're not political, but like that doesn't have to be
that doesn't
political.
Define you. That it's not a prerequisite to being crunchy.
Sure.
She says in the 1980s, crunchy held a faintly pejorative meaning. One didn't announce oneself as crunchy with pride. It felt more like a fashion or anti-fashion statement than a political stance. And so she's saying that today it's more like a political stance. I don't think people are really trying to announce more that they are political or whatever, or trying to make it into a political thing. I think since the 80s, there has been this thing called social media. And so there are very loud voices in any
Even
space.
The internet, blogs.
Yeah.
Blogs. Not just social media.
Sure. Well, social media just makes it spread even more rapidly.
Access, yeah.
Information.
Easy access to information.
Right. And so I think...
And opinions.
Right.
More opinions.
And so it could seem a certain way if you have a few accounts who are really big and they say, well, I'm a huge conservative person or whatever. And so you don't really know what the landscape is like because in the 80s, because you're around your own community of people.
Right.
And they may all think the same way or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily... And I'm not saying
I do think that there was a big conservative population that was quote-unquote crunchy, because I talked to all these moms who are my age who were homeschooled, and their moms were milling their wheat, baking their own bread, trying to buy organic food, trying to make...
Sure.
Their food from scratch.
They didn't live in California.
That wasn't a progressive thing.
Yeah.
It was harder to access those things, but they found a way.
Right.
And it just wasn't as common.
Right. But
crunchy isn't as common as you would think.
No, it's not. It's bigger than it was.
It is.
So what's interesting, though, is that they're pulling this information based on what they see on social media. And the fact of the matter is everybody's just posting all of their stuff on social media. And so you just see it more. And I'm not necessarily true that that's indicative of how the reality of life actually is. And we personally know plenty of people on both sides who are crunchy, and they have completely different political opinions. They have completely different thoughts on certain topics.
I think we can all agree that we want healthier food for our children. we all agree that we want clean water.
I don't know.
We all agree.
Not the New York Times. They don't agree.
Well, here's another misconception, that crunchy moms are misinformed. And she kind of talks about that in the article. And that makes me mad because it's like, actually, we're just informing ourselves with different sources than you are.
Well, and also along with that, saying that it's anti-science. So, like, that's not true. And I know the insinuation there is anti-vaccine, and that's a completely different issue altogether.
That is. They can't lump that in.
Science is a very broad thing. All of science. So what if we don't believe in the moon landing? I'm just kidding. So what if we think the Earth is flat? That doesn't make me anti-science. I'm joking. I don't think the Earth is flat. All right. But so that is crazy to say, I mean, they're anti-science. I'm anti-dumb science. Like, there is some stuff out there.
You're limiting your choices?
I'm saying most crunchy people who have a thing to say about something point to legitimate studies.
Right.
Scientific studies.
Right.
And therefore, how are you calling us, whoever, anti-science? How are you calling people anti-science when they are refuting or going against a scientific study with another scientific study, both of which we can claim, both of which are legitimate? What you have to look at is, when were the studies done? What new information has happened? Are you talking about an older study versus a newer study? Who funded the study? That's where it gets a little iffy, is that there is a general mistrust, and this is not just in the crunchy community, this is in a lot of communities, of government funded things, big corporation funded things. It's not a conspiracy theory.
It's wise to be not suspicious, but like on
to do
guard,
your due
aware.
diligence, be on guard.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's wise. It's wise to be on guard when you meet someone new.
Okay, if Tyson wants to do a study on chickens, I really want to figure out, like, why their chickens are the absolute best, and it's okay to keep them, millions of them in cages stacked on top of each other where they get diseases and stuff like that. If they want to fund a study to make sure that they have a positive outcome, I want to see the particulars of that study. I'm not necessarily going to trust that study. If it is an independent study from somewhere else that is, you kind of already know they're not going to come to the conclusion that it's okay, those chickens are great, diseased chickens are fine.
Right.
I mean, yeah, they might have protein. There's still some ick about it. Okay. I'm just saying, like, there are cases in which, maybe you want to question what some of these studies are saying, what the source of the study is, compare them. That's okay. That's not okay. Anti-science. That's not
anti-science. But I think a lot of people also say going with anecdotal evidence is anti-science. And
I understand that sentiment, because, if a study is saying one thing where they've studied thousands of people, but you have one single...
Who's doing studies on neti pots?
I don't know. Maybe. I have no idea.
I know, but I'm just saying a lot of the anecdotal evidence and things that crunchy people say work and say, are helpful, whatever.
Oh, right. You're saying there's not going to be a big study about it. Yeah.
There's no money in it. Somebody has to make money.
Well, yeah.
Who's going to pay for that?
You have to pay the people to do it.
I mean, it's just...
And there's not... Well, yeah. And of course, a lot of the studies are done in big pharmaceutical... medicines or whatever, pharmaceuticals, because that's where the money is. And unfortunately, I mean, that's how it has to be. Yeah. There's no money in doing a study about herbs, right? Necessarily.
Yeah, there are studies out there, but usually it's in comparison to something else, and it's like, well, yeah, a pharmaceutical drug is going to work faster, and
I mean, with a possibility of some terrible side effects. Yeah.
Right.
Which you can have side effects from natural things, of course.
Yes. But I'm just saying, like, just because you believe anecdotal evidence doesn't make you anti-science. And I think that's unfair to say you're misinformed if you make decisions based on anecdotal evidence. Because I'll be honest, if my Aunt Sue says, this worked for my family and it worked for your grandma and it worked for her mom and it worked for her mom,
Right.
here's what you should try.
Right.
But they don't sell it at
And when there's
CVS. I'm going to probably trust Aunt Sue.
Yeah.
Even though I can't go to PubMed.
Well, this thing that they sell at CVS only killed 15 people out of 1,000. It's fine. It only destroyed their liver. It's okay. It's okay. It didn't happen to many people. Going back to the New York Times article, I thought it was interesting. The part of what she wrote, they warned one another, talking about the crunchy people, about what they saw as the dangers of seed oils and the supposed helpful effects of raw milk, neither of which claim is proven by science. Which, again, that broad term again, by science. That sentence links to another article. It's talking about RFK, where he claims ultra-processed foods are driving the obesity epidemic, and they should be removed from school lunches. And then the New York Times says, what the research suggests, many public health and nutrition experts agree that ultra-processed foods, which make up an estimated 73% of the U.S. food supply,
wow,
crazy, are probably contributing to the obesity crisis in the United States, and it would be beneficial to cut back on them. But the category is wide-ranging, and it's not clear if all ultra-processed foods are harmful, experts say. There may be downsides to avoiding some ultra-processed foods like flavored yogurts and whole wheat breads and cereals, they add, because they can provide valuable nutrients. And so my point is she's linking to this as saying that it's not backed up by science, because science says that you could gain.
Science said it was.
Yeah, I know. They're saying two things there in the next article. Is that, yeah, it's probably not good, but you can have benefits of nutritional benefits from some of these ultra-processed foods. Because
it's added.
It's added, yeah.
Sneaking it in there.
And what they're missing the point on, what she is missing the point on in writing this article, is that what crunchy people are trying to say is that if we were all on board with whole foods, if as a nation we were all on board with whole, unprocessed, ultra-processed foods, that we would be a healthier nation. We would be a healthier people.
I don't understand why we can't be unified on that. Why does that have to be political?
And I think
that is so weird.
And I think the argument gets into, well, it's not sustainable. It's not, with so many people, you have to have ultra-processed foods, and because you can't afford to do so.
And so crunchy people are saying, why not make them the best ultra-processed foods that we can?
Well, and there's other people who argue, people like I forgot his name, but the guy who runs White Oak Pastures, and then, of course, Joel Salatin and his Polyface Farms. I think they make the argument that you possibly can actually feed a nation as big as ours with whole foods and regenerative farming. It would take a lot of work, and it would take a lot of finagling, figuring it out over
was someone
time,
telling me
but you can't do it.
Yeah, I don't know why we can't be unified on that. Why can't
just really good food for people overall, if possible?
Yeah.
Yeah. School lunches too. It is, I guess, a funding issue, but like these initiatives for making food healthier. When I was in school, it's not like it's a bunch of high quality, ultra processed foods. When I was in school, and I understand that was like 20 years ago, whatever, it's chicken nuggets and pizza.
Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah.
For breakfast.
Yeah. So it's not.
Is there even anything beneficial about homogenized, pasteurized skim milk? Or is that just milk flavored water?
It's disgusting. I know that. It's gross.
That's what they were offering kids.
My parents, when I was a kid, they'd buy us 2% milk, and then they would have their own skim milk. They would drink skim milk, and it was a sad day when all that was left in the fridge was some skim milk, and it's like, that's disgusting. How do you people even do this? What's wrong with you people?
What? I'm judging.
My parents were psychos.
Judging.
Yeah, I'm judging too. Skim milk shouldn't even exist. Ugh. Unless they skim it off the top of whole milk and then put it in the milk. That's the only kind of skim milk you ought to have.
Skimming the fat off.
You got to have the skim. You got to keep the skim. Keep the skim.
I'm so confused.
Skimming the fat off.
Okay, what else?
All right, so I want to dive a little bit further into the article. It was a little bit of a weird experience because you weren't quite misquoted, but she did bring in this idea of like,
I'm agreeing.
This is where she really wanted to turn the narrative on what you were actually saying, against what you were actually saying. And let me just read it. Your quote is, or this is before your quote, when mask and vaccine mandates forced mothers to choose sides, Crunchy took a rightward turn. Quote from you. Since COVID and the whole medical freedom movement, a lot more conservatives have entered the Crunchy space, Morrow said.
She left off the second half of my sentence, but I think that's just because it exposed that it's important for us to make our own decisions. Therefore, we need to inform ourselves. But that doesn't mean that people who are progressive have left the Crunchy movement.
Correct.
Yeah, I was saying that I think COVID ignited more of a like traction towards Crunchy ideals, but not necessarily turning people away from it.
Right.
So it's just become more common. Is all I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, previously it was more progressive, and now more conservatives have entered the chat, but it doesn't mean that it has turned conservative.
Right. Right, because I mean
once you're Crunchy, it's kind of hard. I know people go back.
Once you go Crunchy, don't go back.
I just think that once you're aware of things, it would, like, why would you go back?
I mean, there are people who do. I mean,
I
there's
know.
that crazy lady who went after us. Anyway, I just thought it was very interesting to see how you could really see, after reading the article, that narrative being, that story being what she wanted it to be.
Yeah, it is what the writer wants. And then whoever's reading that
thinks that's what you were saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Or whoever's reading that then, who could decide to make some lifestyle changes and is progressive, immediately turned off to
just
it.
Vehemently opposed to it because
Like,
of a
never
political
mind.
opinion.
Yes. And that's...
Which you didn't even give.
Right. That is not wise. Why are we trying to push a political narrative when all that the Crunchy movement is for health?
Well, I think you can make the argument that that's what the New York Times does, is to try to push a political narrative. It's a political newspaper. And so any story is going to be bent towards what's going on politically. And
sure, but why are we trying to make people scared of making healthier choices?
I don't really know. That's what I don't understand, is like, okay, let's say it's true. Let's say that if you're going Crunchy, you are suddenly right wing. Okay. They're trying to demonize what a lot of these media outlets, what some of these people are trying to do. They're trying to demonize making healthier decisions by labeling it something political.
That's so backward.
It's so weird.
So weird.
I don't care if it's left or
understand.
right. It makes no sense to really pound in the idea that if you care about your health, they do it with working out, they do it with things like yoga, and they do it with eating healthy, eating organic. They say it's a white person, right-wing movement. And so they're demonizing it from their point of view to try.
Well, I'm not really on board with yoga, but okay.
Whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like there is a workout aspect to it, whatever.
Yeah, sure,
You forget
sure.
the spiritual part of
Yeah.
it and whatever. But like it makes no sense to try to steer people away from a healthier lifestyle. And it is objectively true that there is a healthier lifestyle and a not as healthy lifestyle. We can disagree on the particulars. That's fine.
Okay.
But you can truly know as best as we can understand it that if you never work out, if you never get your heart pumping, you're going to die earlier than you would have if you were a more fit person, if you had a stronger heart.
Making a lot of scientific claims over here, Jason.
You're saying that's not true?
No, I'm not saying that, but
and they would have you not do that. By demonizing health stuff.
Yeah, but I don't know that they're demonizing.
Eating healthier. Eating your whole foods.
Yes.
We can all agree eating whole foods is healthier.
Yes.
They would try to demonize it by making it political.
What doesn't make sense to me is all these like European countries and the UK, and they are generally more progressive.
Sure.
So conservatives are saying, can't we have our food be like in the EU where things are banned? Can we not please have our food?
Conservatives are. That's what the media is telling you. It's not necessarily just conservatives saying this thing.
Okay, but like then they're twisting it to be this political thing. And it's like, but look at them. They're not even conservative.
Yeah. No,
Generally.
You would think that.
So like, why is that even, and why is that political? I don't get it. I don't understand.
It shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be.
It's weird that it is.
Yes.
And I think it's weird that they're making it political. I don't think it's objectively true that it is a political thing. I think let's be honest. Do you think it boils down to vaccines?
It does boil down to vaccines and then what they label as women's health. And
so, by the way, I will say this objectively, it is not just, and we know them. We're not going to name them, but we know them. It is not just conservative people who are opposed to some vaccines. It is not.
Right.
We know them. There are plenty on the left who also who consider themselves crunchy, who don't like the idea of vaccines. We're not sitting here proclaiming what you should or shouldn't do. We're simply stating an objective fact that both sides, there are people, despite what the media tells you, there are people on both sides who oppose vaccines. The media wants to tell you it's just the right, and it's not true. It's not true. COVID is a different issue in that it did become very political, very broadly, very exposed political when it came to vaccines. But that does not describe the whole spectrum of vaccines that are out there that are opposed by both sides and certain types of people. And I'm not saying we are one way or the other. I will not say that we are one way or the other. And I'm not going to say who else, but I'm just saying it is not true that it's only one-sided. It's not true.
And it's not fair of the media to paint that picture.
Because it's not objectively true.
And that's what news is for.
Yeah.
But objective news is gone. That's dead. Comedy is dead because objective news is dead. I think there's a link there.
Really?
Do you not?
I don't know.
Everything is politicized.
Because of, I guess you could just say comedy is dead because of politics. But I don't think comedy's dead. I think we came to the conclusion in that podcast episode that comedy isn't dead. It's actually having a little bit of a revival.
Hopefully. But, and I made a comment to her about something. I don't even remember what. And I was like, but Saturday Night Live can do it. So why can't I? Why can't I make jokes?
Yeah.
Because Saturday Night Live is doing it. She's like, well, Saturday Night Live is a bunch of actors on drugs strung out in New York City. And you're a mom in the country wearing long dresses. And it's like, so that doesn't give me the right to be funny?
I've heard that argument. She said strung out on drugs.
She did say that.
That's kind of weird. Maybe she knows something we don't. They probably all are. And who knows? That is interesting, and I mean that's kind of its own sort of. So I think the argument, a better argument that I've heard for that, and I'm not saying it's a good argument. I'm just saying I think it's a better one. Is that they have a reputation of legitimacy in that they've been around for decades and decades.
Saturday Night Live?
Sure, yeah, they have.
Okay.
And or NBC in general.
What to
they
expect.
they are a gatekeeper in that they have a reputation that they will produce whatever. They're allowed to tell racist jokes. They're allowed to, that's legitimate. They're allowed to tell very off-color jokes. They're allowed to tell vaccine jokes. They're allowed to say almost whatever they want to say. Look at The Office. Look at any sitcom that came out in the last 2 decades. They're allowed to say pretty much whatever they want to say because they can say, well, we're NBC. We're just making light of something. We're making a commentary on something. Where the discrepancy comes in is that you are a mom in rural Kentucky making comedy, and we don't know, you don't have 50 years of comedy proof to show us that you are able to be that gatekeeper to where it is just a joke.
Well, and I wrote a book.
Yeah, I understand.
But
I
then
get
they
it,
did,
and I agree with you.
They did the More You Know commercials, so.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. They have a stance as a company as to what they believe in, and you know what that is, and so they're allowed to say almost whatever they want. People generally don't really know who you are. Are you making content that is, are you making commentary based off of, people don't know. They don't know.
And
they don't know what you're saying.
User discretion is advised on social
also,
media.
Don't take so much stock in what a person online is saying to you.
Right.
In a joke, especially when it's a skit.
Right.
I mean, it kind of comes back to this whole, like, you don't like the little pharmaceutical commercial we made about Christmas tree cake?
I didn't like it. I mean, I thought it was hilarious, but I can view it from a random viewer's perspective.
And I want to ask,
say like, oh, that's offensive.
And I want to ask, okay,
why?
What the offensive part is like what I said, or you're just plain lazy. Like when I was talking about if you give your kids Christmas tree cakes as a stay-at-home mom who sends their kids off to daycare or whatever and drinking wine all day. We painted a picture of a very specific mom. We're talking like a not that high percentage. And it's a joke. That mom's not even real. It's hardly a real mom. Okay? And somebody was like, well, I work. And
I got so many messages. This is not right. You're tearing down other moms.
You're tearing down
have
moms
to work
who have
outside the home.
You start off the video with saying, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and so I use Christmas tree, whatever. We automatically, first sentence, are not talking about you. We are not talking about you. We're not talking about anybody. We're making a joke. And my point is, in saying all this, is that don't take so much stock in what somebody online is just saying, especially in comedy.
But where can people turn, Jason? Where can people turn to make decisions, to make observations, to get ideas?
Where do you turn? Where do you find your
my
information?
My real life and books.
Yeah.
I feel like books are a better resource, but they're still
but there's
not
ways
objective.
To vet people, and you can read. They have indexes and appendices and all that kind of stuff where they have their studies, and you can look these things up. And yeah, you may not feel like you have enough time, but I mean,
and I think I actually like following people from every political stance because I can use my own
discretion.
Yes, I can view something and be like, oh, that's funny. I don't agree with that. Okay, moving on. Doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
Also the Bible.
Yeah, there you go. Amen. All right. I think it stinks that publications like the New York Times are perpetuating misinformation. I would say misconceptions of what the crunchy life is. And I hope that we've maybe corrected it for the 2 people who listen that don't already feel the same way what we do. Like the 2 curious people out there who wanted to give this podcast a try.
We lost them.
Sorry if we lost you for a minute.
Usually we try to keep this thing pretty funny. This one felt a little heavy, Jason.
I thought it was hilarious. It's all just been a joke.
Just a joke.
We made it all up. No, I thought it was good. I thought it was interesting. And I will stand by most of my statements.
Most of them?
I'll replay it later and see if I liked what I said.
I know. I always want to listen to the podcast, and then I don't have time before you post it. So then I listen after you post it, and I'm like, what?
Why did I say that thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I never do that. I always like what I say.
I know.
I'm the best. You know what would be the best is if you gave us a 5-star review. Just hit that 5 stars below. It's on Spotify. You just hit the star
this time. We're definitely getting a 1 star.
Don't speak that over us. And if you're on Apple, you can hit the review and star button.
Thank you so much for listening.
And if you're on YouTube, hey, can I say
podcast.
this really quick? If you're wanting to see this on YouTube, you can subscribe to us at the Really Very Crunchy Podcast YouTube channel.
Hope you have a Merry Christmas.
Wait, did you outro us already?
That's what I did.
Oh, I didn't hear it because I was talking.
Thank you so much.
Happy 2025.
What?
Already.
That's wild.
All right. Man, I'm old.